A stronger day, be your best every day. Hi, I'm Adimus, founder and director of Strength Optimizer. I aim to help you stay healthy, be happier, and deal with challenges with greater resilience. Do you know what happiness at work is? And how can you create more happiness at your workplace? And is happiness always a good thing? Today, you will meet Dr. Louise Lambert from Dubai. Louise will show you how you and your organizations can attain more happiness at your workplace. Thank you. Hi, I'm Adimus, founder and director of Strength Optimizer. Thank you for watching Strength Optimizer, the Science Up Your Wellbeing series. Today, we have Dr. Louise Lambert joining us from Dubai. Louise is a Canadian registered psychologist who designs and delivers positive psychology intervention programs for schools and organizations across the Dubai region. She's currently teaching the first happiness and well-being class at the UAE University. Since 2015, Louise has been the editor of the Middle East of the Journal of Positive Psychology. She's also the author of its first region's textbook in positive psychology and general psychology. I'm so grateful to have you with us today, Louise. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm great. Thank you for having me. Yes, it's fun.
Fun. That's right. That's what we aim to do. We have lots of fun. And
Yes.
thank you once again for taking the time to share with us about the topic happiness at work.
Mm-hmm.
So, Louise, apart from the many hats that you're wearing as a psychologist as well as an author, you're also the head of happiness research and policy design at the Global Communication Agency Middle East, where you help workplaces increase happiness. Sorry, where you help organizations increase their work level of happiness at the workplace. So, in simple language, what is it exactly that you do as a head of happiness research and policy design?
Okay, it probably sounds far more fascinating and elegant than it is, but
Very
essentially,
intriguing.
yeah, exactly. Essentially, I teach people to be happier. So I do a number of different programs for people, all based in positive psychology. So using what we know are the different strategies. So positive psychology interventions.
Yep.
And my thinking is really that happier people in their lives generally, this translates into the workplace, but also when we're happier in the workplace, this also translates back to home and other areas of life. So I've developed a couple of programs. One is for employees specifically, so helping them to increase their levels of subjective well-being. And there might be some other indicators in there that we add as well. And then the other one is also supporting their increases in subjective well-being, but through their managers. So I also do training for managers because I believe happiness is a shared goal, a shared responsibility. And there it's really looking at how managers can lead with happiness, but also develop what we know in positive psychology is called high quality connections. So yeah, I kind of tackle it from both sides. So programming, one. And then I might also do a little bit of a policy and practice review. So sometimes when people are unhappy in the workplace, it's not just the vibe or the mood, but they're unhappy for a reason. So it could be policies that are maybe they're there, but they're not equally applied or infrequently applied, or they don't exist and they could be developed. So it's every organization or institution is a little bit different. And so it's really sitting down with them and getting a good grasp on what is happening, what are their goals, what do people need, and then how do we make that happen?
Yeah, so sounds like our approach is pretty much collaborative and consultative in this understanding and just that at the organization level, in terms of the culture, but also in terms of the leaders, manager, employees. So it's very comprehensive, systemic kind of approach.
Yeah, I mean, we try, and for a couple of good reasons. Happiness is not one person's responsibility, but also if we only focus on employees, it ends up being a little bit punitive. It's kind of like,
You have to
you
be
must be
happy.
happy. Yeah, you better be happy or you're out of here, kind of thing. And that doesn't work because
Yeah.
employees, I mean, if I were told that, I'd be like, really? What are you doing? Right?
Mm.
So we really try to tackle all the different parties, but also look at what matters. So again,
Yeah.
those policies and practices, and tackle it from many different sides
Yeah.
and many different avenues.
I see. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Yeah.
unpacking that very intricate title that you have.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that although many people want to be happy or happier at work,
Mm.
happiness is a construct, I guess, that means different thing for different people. So, what is happiness at work and why it matters, Louise?
Well, I mean, it matters. Maybe I'll define it. Do I start with the definition or why
Yeah.
it matters? It matters because there's lots of good research right now that has been done over the past couple of years, but even in the past year, showing that when people are happier generally in their lives overall, and it may be relative to work or not, but just generally when they're happier, they are more productive, they are more collaborative, they're more creative, they're more they're healthier as
Yeah.
well, so sick leave tends to come down. So there's a lot of positive outcomes for organizations, and the
Mm.
irony is always that organizations sometimes feel like, do I really want to do this for employees? It's like, but actually you're doing it for yourself because you're going to be the one to gain the most here. So from a workplace perspective, there's definitely a lot of outcomes. So from that perspective, yes, it matters. We also
Yeah.
know that organizations are more profitable when people are happier as
Yeah.
well. So lots of good outcomes. And this
Great.
is not just a Western thing. So a
Mm.
recent study was published by Gallup just last year across a number of different countries, over 300 different industries, on I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of employees, but it
Mm.
really just kind of debunked this myth that,
Yeah.
this is a Western thing. No, this is a human thing. And
Mm.
we see the same patterns all over.
Yeah.
So that's why it matters. Your second question is, what does happiness look like?
Mm.
So this is a little bit harder because when it comes to the science of positive psychology, right now we've got a number of different models, a number
Yeah.
of different definitions, a number of different ways of understanding happiness. So I try to just think about it really easily and think about it as happiness at work is
Mm.
happy individuals bringing that mindset with them. So
All
that's
right.
one. The other one is being happy with work.
Very
So
important.
there's
Yeah.
happiness at and there's happiness with.
With.
And happiness with work is doing what you're good at. So here we talk about a fit with our character strengths. So
Yeah.
it's you're good at it, but also it brings out the best in you, and you don't even have to work very hard at it. This is just who you are.
Mm.
But also you do it with people that you like and who
Yeah.
hopefully like you back. um, and that it more or less feels good throughout the
Yeah.
day. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be laughing all day long. In fact, that can actually get in the way of work,
Mm.
but that you're not crying in the bathrooms either,
Yeah.
right? So you leave work and you're like, yeah, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not complicated, but at the same time, it can be hard work to make that happen because there's a
Mm.
lot of different levers and entry points
Yeah.
and influencers as well that make it a little bit tricky sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you did mention about happiness at work. One is about the mindset. The other one
Mm,
is the work itself. Not only happiness at work, but also with what you're doing, especially if you enjoy what you're doing and you're good at what you're doing, then I guess that is, or believe that is, then the relationship in terms of your level of happiness will tend to increase as well. You
yeah.
also mentioned that it's not a Western phenomenon. It is almost like a global phenomenon where fundamentally we human beings do want to be happy, even though it may have different kind of, I guess, that interpretations or manifestations for different individuals, different cultures. But the need is there. Would it be correct to say so?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, and we know that there are big cultural variations in happiness, and it's not they're not so much in their maybe again, the way it's described or the way it's expressed, but at the end of the day, nobody gets up in the morning and says, I want to be miserable today. I mean, nobody does that.
Yeah.
And it's not also that people wake up and say, I want to be so happy today, but people just somewhere in there implicitly, you just want to enjoy your day. And
Yeah.
however you define that, I think that's a very human and universal need that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And once again, I think that one of the myths that we need to debunk is that the happiness doesn't mean that feeling, euphoria or this kind of positive emotions all the time. Because for any one of us who has been working for a period of time, we understand that and we acknowledge that there's going to be ebbs and flow in terms of the emotions. There are goods that we feel great, yeah, we're happy. There are days that we feel somehow overwhelmed, a little bit under the pump, under the pressure, having some conflict with our colleagues, and I don't really feel on top of the world. But yet, it doesn't discount the fact that it is still ways that we can attain the happiness that actually help us to improve our, as you mentioned earlier, subjective well-being. So it's about the well-being again.
Exactly. Yeah. And, and in the science, also the way we measure happiness, I mean, we think about subjective well-being, but there's also different components under that. So there's meaning. Do you find what you do is meaningful and contributes? And when people have very meaningful jobs, you're not necessarily going to see them like, these Google stock photos, people jumping in the hallway. I'm like, I have never seen this. I've never done that. Right. But
Yeah.
but yet people who find a lot of value and meaning at work are happy doing it. They might not use that word, but would they quit their job? No way. It is important to them.
Yeah.
So there's different ways of understanding happiness. So unfortunately, that's the word I use because it's the word people understand. But part of what I do when I go into organizations is just talk about, hold on here, what is happiness? Okay. So you're not going to be prancing in the hallways, but it is about these deeper questions of, how do we pull what matters to people and how do we make that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, sounds like you have found a language that resonates with people, sort of hook people in the sense that happiness. Yes, I get it, because at a very individual subjective level, we experience it, we sense that, but yet it goes one step further, unpacking it. That it's not just about feeling good, it's not about experiencing positive emotion all the time, but also have the elements, as you mentioned earlier, the values, the purpose, the meaning, the satisfactions and interpersonal high quality connections with other people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'd even add to that, that's a beautiful list, by the way. I'd even add to that, states of flow. I mean, I think about when I'm happiest at work and I'm not even talking to anybody. I'm just like, I'm doing my research and the ideas are going and I'm writing these beautiful paragraphs and everything's making sense. And I'm like, I'm good. Now, I wouldn't say that out loud and I still get rejected anyway. my articles still get rejected, but that's not the point. I feel good when I do it, but that's another form of happiness, is losing ourselves in our work. And if somebody were to walk by me, I certainly don't look happy. I'm just like in the zone. In fact, I'm ignoring everybody, but that's a source of satisfaction and gratification for me. So it's also about giving people what matters to them in the workplace so that work can be enjoyable, whatever way it suits them best.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of, again, collaboration and understanding where people are at and where people, organization, where they intend or plan to go ahead as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. I think earlier on, Louise also mentions about measuring happiness in the workplace. So I guess perhaps you can elaborate that for us a little bit more. How do you actually measure happiness at the workplace?
So again, because there's all these different moving parts, I mean, I evaluate my programs because I want to be able to see pre, post, and post again. Do gains in happiness stay, and not just after a program? Because we get people at the end of a program and everyone's like, yeah, that was really good, but then by the time they hit the parking lot, the impact is gone already, right? So I'll do a pre-post, and then 3 months later, I want to see, are you still feeling good? Are you still feeling better? So I will always measure a variety of subjective well-being scales. So one of life satisfaction, I might also include the mental health continuum. So looking at where people are on that continuum, and organizations like that one, because they're like, really? We have all these people who are languishing?
Yeah.
Mhm. And languishing, for organizations, you're really leaving money on the table. So that means these people aren't depressed. You're not losing money necessarily, but
Yeah.
this is extra human capital that you're not tapping into.
Yeah.
So that scale I love. Organizations like it. And just for those who don't know, I mean, it measures depression. So people at the lower end, languishing, not necessarily depressed, not necessarily happy, just kind of, I call it post-pandemic, just,
Yeah.
and
Getting
then I call them
by.
the
Yeah.
getting by, just going through the motions. And then I call them the magical unicorns, people at the very top who are maybe like in the hallway, and I don't know where you guys get that energy, but anyway, but I
Drink the
know they
coffee.
exist, right? It's the coffee, exactly, but I know they exist. But also to kind of think about, if you've got these people here, what are they doing differently? And how do we kind of reverse engineer that? Is there a specific department that's rocking it relative to all the others? Why? What's different about that manager? What's different about those interactions? So, knowing who's doing well and perhaps less well gives us a lot of clues, and we're able to kind of get a better picture. Now, the other thing I also do, and this is really where it depends on what the organization is interested in. So some people are interested in, complaints. How many complaints does this department get from customers or other departments? Speed at doing particular tasks, answering calls in a timely fashion, or sort of transferring calls into customers. It could also be, over a long period of time, looking at sick leave. I mean, half your department is always sick. I think something's happening there, right? So really, again, I would just negotiate that with the organization to just think about what is important for you, and then how do we capture that somehow? Sometimes it's just behavioral frequencies. So for managers, it might be a quick little checklist. Like, did you say hi to people this week? Like, actually, like, hi, Joe. It could be simple stuff, but we know that these little tiny connections matter. So we would ask the managers, but I also ask the employees, did your manager say hi? Okay, just checking. Just checking. So there's a lot of different ways that we can capture. It just depends on what's important to that organization.
All right. So I guess it ranges from very informal way to a formal kind of psychometric assessment or test.
Yeah. So psychometric would be more on my end, because I want to make sure that, the gains hold, and then I can go back to organizations and say, actually, this does work. And we know that it does just from the positive psych literature, but in an organizational context, we want to be able to show that as well.
Excellent. Yeah. I guess the next questions will be a big one, in the sense that obviously we talk about the happiness research, we talk about why it matters, the benefits and the return on investment, not just only for the individuals, but also for the organizations. So at the end of the day, what can people and organizations do to attain happiness at work?
So I think, because people often ask this question, okay, but nobody's getting along, everybody's angry, everybody's like, crying in the bathrooms. What can we do? And it sounds really stupid to start giving little pieces of advice, because when you're faced with these huge issues where everybody feels terrible, it almost seems naive to think this kind of stuff works. So for me, I kind of go right up to the top. And that's why I think getting that organizational buy-in makes such a difference, because if you're trying to bring this in from the bottom up, that can be almost an impossible climb. Not impossible, but it's very difficult. So I think it's getting leadership to see the value of, you're not doing us a favor, you're actually doing yourself a favor when you're focusing on employees' well-being. So it's getting that understanding, and then actually getting leaders themselves to say, and this is where humility comes in, we see there's a problem and we don't really know how to fix it yet, but we're committed to taking steps and to hearing what's happening and to trying to, create changes. So I think humility in leadership goes a long way, and just being open to what are those issues, and not being afraid to ask the question. So this is where the beauty of little tiny simple questions really works well. So one thing managers can do, if we bring it down a little bit more at a practical level, is, even meeting one-on-one with people, and to say, what is one really tiny small thing we could do to improve your experience here? And sometimes the answers are just so simple, and you think, well, gosh, if that was all it took, why didn't we do that? I think back to another organization I worked at, and had I been asked the question, my answer would have been, I want a door.
A physical door.
A door. I want a door. Had they given me a door, I might have stayed. These glass cubicles, the doors never, it's a sliding glass door. It's noisy. People are in and out. Everybody's walking by looking, constant interruptions. And oh my gosh, I was going insane. And, it's not the door, but would it have gone a long way? Absolutely. So just asking the question, sometimes it can be a really easy fix. And then great, you've already improved it by 10%. So there are really easy things that we can do. I also think for employees individually, what's one small thing you can do is really have an honest discussion, an honest conversation with yourself. I think of workplaces like relationships, and sometimes it's you and your bad attitude. Okay. But sometimes your attitude is that way because there's a lot of water under the bridge. So sometimes, like, I get it, workplaces are hard. So, if you can think about what are things that I could do to maybe be less irritable, less impatient, less annoyed, a little bit kinder, even if I have to grit my teeth and go, okay, well, it's better than what you did last week, but also sometimes it's not the right place. So some people are in bad workplaces, and they're trying and they're trying and they're trying and they're burning themselves out. And you just sort of go, at what point do you say, okay, you know what, maybe there are better places elsewhere? And sometimes that's the decision you have to make. So that would not be my first piece of advice, but I think we all kind of have, there are all small things that we can do to make a difference. And we need to try as much as possible to explore those. But there comes a point at which you may also need to say, okay, life's short. And life's too short to have bad days at work.
Too many bad days at work. Sometimes
too many bad days at work. Yeah. It's like bad days in a relationship. There's going to be a few, maybe more than a few at certain points in time, but every single day, and then you got choices to make.
And again, I'm so glad to hear you say that when it comes to attaining happiness in workplace, there's no magic formula. There's no easy fix. I'm so glad you said, okay, you must do A, B, C, D, E. Everything's will be hunky-dory. Yes. So good that you mentioned that. And it's not that easy. It's about the power of asking, as you said.
And every organization is going to be different. Some organizations deeply, truly care about their people. They really do. But there's, especially in this pandemic context, they're trying to do the same or more with a lot less. Everybody's stretched. Everybody recognizes it, but there's no other option. So sometimes, like, they get it, they're committed and they do care. And then it's about just saying, thank you. We understand, showing empathy, showing understanding. Other workplaces, maybe you don't care so much, so these strategies are going to be different. And for all organizations, it's going to look a lot different. So no, it's not simple.
Absolutely. And I guess being a scientist or a researcher yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, data is important. Sounds like you're pretty much data-driven, data-informed. That's why you talk about asking the powerful questions. Seek first to understand that only the data is going to drive and inform what is going to work best for the organizations, as well as for the staff, employees, and the individuals.
And it's also about giving real solutions. So I mean, you must have seen this, everybody's seen this, at the beginning of Positive Psych, there was a lot of, yay, the pizza party, happy smile faces. And
Mm,
this ends up being an afternoon's entertainment, but this is not really a strategy for change. This is not really a long-term solution. Or, the yoga, I got nothing against yoga, but you can't out yoga a bad boss, right? So at some point you need more solid, concrete strategies and ways forward, but also you do need to deal with problems. Because if that's what's making people unhappy, then yes, that is what you need to talk about. So it's as much problem focused as it is opportunity focused. And it's really about getting people in the space to be thinking about, why are we here? We're here to work, yes, but this should not be a painful experience. And we can work better when we feel better. And this will be better for everybody. So why not do that? And how do we make that happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. Once again, I guess that it is the hands and glove kind of approach that it takes to collaboration for the leaders. It said that there needs to be a buy-in, but also for the individual staff as well. Because I guess as human beings, it's very easy sometimes for us to blame the environment or attribute to the toxic organization culture. And therefore, as an employee, there's nothing much I can do. I need to have the paycheck, so I'm just enduring this painful working experience day in, day out.
Yeah. And sometimes we may have to do that. I'm also not, encouraging people to be heroes and, I'm going to be happy, meanwhile you get an ulcer and you wind up with sick in bed for months. Like that. No, I mean, there's other ways of doing this, but asking ourselves those questions, what can we do?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is almost sounds like a rhetorical question, but I just want to get your point of view. Is happiness always a good thing?
No. No, it's not. Sometimes, again, it comes down to your definition, but also there are times when, no, I don't want you to be happy at work. If you're unhappy, be unhappy, because it means there's something wrong. There's an inequality, there's unfairness, somebody's maybe being treated poorly. Emotions in themselves give us clues. And when we feel badly, I call it, it's almost like the fire alarm. If there's a fire alarm going, don't say, oh no, we only want good news. We're just going to ignore the fire alarm. Yo, your building's on fire, right? So negative emotions can be really good. They tell us something needs attention. But also we know that when people are too happy, our cognitive states differ, our perceptual states differ, how we interact with other people changes. And sometimes being happier is conducive to certain responses, other times it's not. So if you're going to do heart surgery on me, please don't be so joyful. I want you to be a little bit on the, like tone it down, because I need you to focus and to, do what you need to do. But also, when it comes to anything that has really high stakes, so surgery, investing, being too optimistic can lead you to throw a lot of money out the window and then go, oh, well, we just felt really good about it. No, don't do that. Things like security, crime, now a negative approach there's also consequences to that. We don't want to go to the extremes either, but there's a conducive emotional state for everything. And sometimes being too happy is not good. And so certain industries don't benefit from having everybody being cheerful and optimistic. That can actually make things worse. On the other hand, organizations also don't benefit from having everybody be pessimistic and grumpy and cranky. And this is also not helpful. So it's finding what works, what's a good emotional tone where people feel good and we make good decisions. But it's about the work and it's not about us.
Yeah, right. My word for it is that context is important. So depending on what sort of context and how happiness can actually fit into the context, whether it's going to be productive or counterproductive, I think that's what matters as well.
Yeah. And we can think about happiness in different ways too. I mean, happiness is the outcome. It can also be input. It can also be process, so we can think about where does this fit in different places. And sometimes we don't want it to be part of the process because we'll get better decisions without it, but we'll still have it at the outcome because we've made good decisions. So it's just kind of thinking it through.
Wonderful. And you also mentioned that there is a legitimate place for, what do we call it, negative emotions or unpleasant feelings, because they act as a signpost. You said it so wonderfully. At the workplace, you will see some sort of inequality or injustice that makes you unhappy. That can be a very positive and powerful catalyst for you to do something about it.
Yeah. And the worst thing you could do would be to be like, no, be optimistic, it'll be fine. No, like, this is not right. So all emotions are good, but it's just treating emotions with more respect, but also thinking through intentionally what's going to fit here. What do we need to pay attention to, and not this blind be happy. No, it needs to be much more nuanced and contextualized.
Yeah. And just now when you mentioned this word, be happy, suddenly, I don't know how, I just have this image or this song from the movie Lion King, Hakuna Matata.
Exactly.
Right, kind of philosophical type of approach. Don't worry, be happy, everything's gonna be good. But it's not. And once again, the science that tells you so much about happiness, that it has multiple layers, and it's related to our fundamental well-being once again.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think we need more education around that, because the Hakuna Matata is alive and well. And so people hear happiness and that's what they think. And it's like, no, there will be no singing and dancing today in the office. That's not at all what we're talking about. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So just one last question for you, Louise. It's got nothing to do about happiness at work, but what's one thing that you have been doing this week to look after your well-being?
I'm very predictable in this way. So I've got like days and times where I very much, it's my time. So I literally clock off. I shut the phone off, not just silent, but I shut it off. I leave it in the car, and then I go play tennis. And I love it. And where I play tennis, it's very green. There's peacocks. We have peacocks in Dubai. We have peacocks. And sometimes they fly onto the court. So I'm not very good at tennis, so I can't manage to hit them anyway. But we try and aim for them, like, yo, get off the court, right? But it's nice, and the birds are singing, and it's a really beautiful place. It's on the water, the boats, and so that's my little space. I also it's just locked in time with friends, so it might be 2 or 3 nights a week, and I just kind of rotate through the friend list. But just staying connected with people, and because I think for all of us, even if you are versed in happiness, I think we all have these moments, especially in pandemic, where you're just laying on your bed at 2 p.m. going, what is my life coming to? So for me, it's just really important to stay connected with people, because we can kind of easily become disconnected and a little bit mentally unhinged. So I try to stay connected somehow.
Excellent. So sounds like this combinations of, as mentioned earlier, making meaningful connections with friends, enjoy the activities you like to do, which is tennis, connecting with the nature, the peacock, beautiful bird.
Yeah, exactly. And just getting a good sweat.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Louise.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
If you want to engage Louise's expertise in helping workplaces to create happiness, then make sure you visit the website. It's called happinessmatters.org, which is happinessmatters.org, or I'm sure that you can reach Louise via her LinkedIn profile as well.
Yes, absolutely. More than happy to field questions or comments. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for watching. Once again, I'm Demas from Strength Optimizers. We are here to bring out the best in you by optimizing your strengths. Have an awesome day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.